All right, my name is Javier Saavedra. I teach robotics at Second Baptist School in Houston, Texas.
I'm Chris Andres. I teach third grade at Mount Vernon Presbyterian School here in Atlanta.
And we are doing a collaborative sanitation project for underprivileged populations. So that's our beautiful faces. And you want to introduce it, Chris?
So this project started a little more than a year ago, and the inspiration actually came from the Second Baptist School in Houston. And they were already working with the population, had
underprivileged population in shelters. So basically we have contact with Star of Hope and also with the Salvation Army.
And while they were beginning their work there, it inspired the work here at our school in Atlanta. Starting in the second grade, obviously, our work began earlier this year with the students that I now have in second grade and their research and into the population here in Atlanta, the underserved, underprivileged population here in Atlanta.
All right, so back in February 2012, we got this amazing opportunity to partner up with Mount Vernon Presbyterian through the SAIS grant. And we decided to go and work together. Actually, in 2013, Second Baptist and Mount Vernon, they worked together in a project that it was called Fuse for design thinking. So we actually worked with that, and we came out with this idea. So we agreed to work together, and it was extremely beautiful how a common problem can have several different answers. So our approach in Second Baptist School was actually going directly to find out the kind of diseases that affect the homeless population in Houston, and also the kind of illness that affects our students in our campus. So we decided to do that, and also we partner up with our fourth graders and our wonderful science teacher, Mrs. Konuma, and we work with her, and the kids design all these crazy ideas about sanitation devices. And believe me, when I say crazy ideas, they were absolutely crazy. It was fantastic. So that's our approach. Mount Vernon had a different approach.
So we began our heavy discovery work in the second grade, where the students began to wonder about what is this population? How do we know what the population is? So they began asking people in the know, one of them being the Sandy Springs Police. So we have, actually Captain Lindstrom is someone who is on site, on campus from time to time, so he's an easy resource for second graders to reach out to. So they reached out to him and asked about the population in the Sandy Springs community specifically, which led them to connections with other nonprofits in the area that serve the homeless population and other shelters as well.
Okay, so when we got the grant and we had that huge blessing, and then our kids were already devising and inventing and creating all these wonderful things, then we say, okay, finally we decided to go with an UV radiation machine. So the idea was, the kids thought that it was going to be a great idea to clean the hands of homeless people as well as our students with UV light, because it's a proven technology. We actually can kill bacteria and viruses, and everything was going fantastic until we hit some research for the University of Columbia, and they said actually that we have to be very careful because UV radiation may be mutagenic, so it can produce cancer. And obviously, this raised all our alarms, but empower our kids in such a way that it was amazing. They realized that sometimes when you have a goal in a project, sometimes you find out obstacles, and sometimes you have find things that are in your way, and the kids said, well, what can we do? So we said, okay, obviously we cannot use it on people. This is not a good idea. And then we decided to go with the sanitation of different objects. So in this case, we were talking about toothbrushes, combs, blankets, clothes. We realized that the underprivileged community, they lack the infrastructure that sometimes we take for granted. So we said, you know what, this is going to be a wonderful idea. The kids were very happy with that. So we decided to go with the research of the UV machine. And Mount Vernon had a different approach. Again.
And as it is in A Tale of Two Cities, from Houston to Atlanta.
Yes.
But the second graders were inspired by the work. The fact that we were able to collaborate with Second Baptist in Houston and to share ideas, it inspired our second graders to go in as high a tech way as they possibly could go instantly. And so they started thinking about specific hygiene packs. A lot of them began to prototype different things that could go into homeless shelters specifically, or temporary shelters, to help with the general sanitation. And it's really funny how far they can dream. They started dreaming up very elaborate and beyond our technology, we're not quite there yet type ideas. And which created problems as we pushed this project further up into our upper school. And we started to look into ozone, and we're not quite there yet. So it's kind of forcing our upper school students, who are also part of this, it's throughout the entire school.
Entire school, yeah.
From our second graders to now third graders, which I get to have them moving forward from here, but then collaborating with our upper school and seeing what they can make of our ideas and pushing forward. So it was really interesting to see where they would go and run into those limitations, because it's those constraints that really push us to another level of learning, I think.
And to see the kids adapting and the kids being open to be flexible and to approach the problem in a different way, it was just fantastic. What a wonderful learning opportunity. Then at Second Baptist, since we were developing already the prototype of our UV sanitation device, which I'm going to show you in a few minutes, it was really interesting, because then with the biology department in high school, they decided to go and start taking swabs of different surfaces. So surfaces as the elevators, the buttons of the elevators, the handrails on the stairs. How about the countertops in the kitchen, the countertops in the cafeteria? And we start doing all this bacteria growth, which is amazing, all the stuff that we have. These things are the nastiest things that we have by far, and the kids realize that. So right now we have a lot of Petri dishes at Second Baptist School in a wonderful incubator that is replicating the temperature of the human body. It smells wonderful, and we are testing right now the right dose of electromagnetic radiation, which is basically the UV light. And we are seeing how bacteria and virus die.
And as we here in Atlanta have been running into different roadblocks and speed bumps, we've been focusing a lot more on application of their technology, the technology that they developed or have prototyped in
Yes.
Second Baptist, and looking at different applications. One that we ran into was there was a local organization that refurbishes and reissues assistive technologies, things like crutches and things like that. And so we're exploring connections in our own community to apply this technology and others to inspire more innovations for the future.
Yeah. So right now I can tell you that we are about 45% in completion of the whole project. Right now we are at second, and Mount Vernon Presbyterian. We are right now going into, okay, this is what is working, this is what is not working, and we have to readapt again, and the kids are having a blast, and we're going crazy as well. And we realized that we have two different kinds of impact. The first impact was at school, and of course the second one is with the underprivileged homeless population. So the impact at our school, it was fantastic, because our kids, they were able to be in teleconferences with Mount Vernon students. So and they were actually in different grades. So for example, our fourth graders were talking to second graders in Mount Vernon. And actually it was very interesting, because as teachers, we were ready to interact and to present and to guide. No, the kids took over. And during the whole hour, they were just explaining to other kids their ideas. And there was no criticizing. There was some constructive criticism, I can say. Everything was constructive. It was amazing. So there you can see a picture right there of our kids having the teleconference, and in the other one, they were just designing and researching all the pathogens. They found out multiple ways, as I told you before, in their creativity. Their imagination is off the charts, and they were working on a real problem solving, which is what we really like. It doesn't matter for them to be extremely young, but they can make a difference. And I think it's our job as educators to empower them to realize that they can make a difference.
Also, some of the major impacts when we are looking at the work that the students were doing at Mount Vernon was the focus on the collaboration. I was so excited to see some of the other grants that we talked about today, talking about different aspects of collaborating and working together. And we have at Mount Vernon different mindsets and we're working now on getting specific skills. What is a collaborator mindset? And how do you teach a collaborator? What are the different components of a collaborator? Different things like that, and trying to develop some different proficiency scales of skills that are specific to different educational mindsets. So that's it's constantly going and constantly changing, and we're striving to get to those places. But some of our highlights are here, just again, collaborating with people from another city, another state, making it possible to connect to another country, using technology that is available to us now to be able to do that, and then solve real world problems, things that are happening. I think sometimes we get really ambitious as teachers to shoot for saving the world on the other side of it, when we have many issues here locally that we can address immediately and have an immediate impact. And so through this collaboration, we're exploring our community more intentionally, and through a design thinking process, spending time on the research, then going into figuring out who it is that we're trying to serve, and then spending intentional time experimenting and then producing and sharing.
And here, allow me, when you were talking about science, that's actually my cup of tea. I love science. On the way that this device that we're working on works is with something that is called UVC. UVC is actually ultraviolet in a very specific, narrow segment of the spectrum. Usually, UVC goes from 100 nanometers to 280. And we are actually working on 254 nanometers, which is the safest for humans, deadly for viruses and bacteria. The way that it works is this electromagnetic radiation, because that's basically what it is just bombarding the DNA of viruses and bacteria. And the photons, they go inside the nucleus of the bacteria, and it changes the DNA by breaking the covalent bonds. So the DNA cannot replicate. So when DNA cannot replicate, it goes into a process that is called apoptosis, which is basically, and all my kids, they teach me this, okay, yeah. They taught me all this stuff. So it goes into apoptosis, which is basically when the cell is programmed itself to die. So they cannot reproduce, the DNA cannot replicate, and this is wonderful because it breaks the electromagnetic radiation, breaks those bonds, it creates mutagenic lesions, and basically is mayhem for bacteria and viruses. So it is just amazing. Our next step is we're going to be, now that we have the working prototype, we're going to be working in the real SAIS machine with a technology that has been proven. It works, and we're expecting to install a machine like that in Star of Hope, so we can serve the underprivileged population. Our idea as well is, because inside that machine, and I just cannot walk right now because of
Let's walk.
I can walk with my friend.
Let's walk
right now.
Come with me.
Thank you so much. Well, this machine, the way that it works, let me just plug it in. And I just need, for security reasons, okay, as you can see right there, if you insert a small key in here, you're going to be able to control the duration of the electromagnetic radiation. So this was built by our students using computer-aided design, CAD, and then they were able to generate the G code that is necessary for the CAM, for the computer-aided manufacturing. So then we send these pieces to a place where they use a router to cut it. The kids assemble the whole thing. They have to go into pilot holes. You have to design the frame this way because it's not going to work. So it was fun. And then it has a reflective surface inside. And inside this 3D printed box, there is a microcontroller. The microcontroller, our kids in robotics class, they program the microcontroller. So every single time that I press like that, you have radiation. Allow me, so I can clean my phone in the process. And what it's doing right there is the kids are controlling the variable, the only variable that they can control, which is the amount of time the electromagnetic radiation is actually going to be active. By doing this, as I said, we can disrupt the DNA replication, and hopefully we just can eliminate bacteria and viruses that affect not only our underprivileged community, but at the same time, the kids in our school.
And then we're going to continue to do the same thing. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much.